What's going on, guys? This is Jimmy.
Hey, 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 this is Rachel.
Guys, thank you all so much for tuning in to Relationship Real Talk. We again are excited to be here.
Yes,
We
yes.
want to say this, and I
What you
don't
about to say, baby?
want you guys to take this lightly because
What you
we
about to say?
truly do appreciate you all taking this time out of your Sunday to join us. We can do this without you. Honestly, we would. It would be kind of weird, wouldn't it?
It would. It's literally become part of our every Sunday ritual.
Yes,
And I guess if we didn't do it, it just wouldn't feel right. Even when we went on our anniversary trip,
it was a little weird.
it was a little weird, and we didn't even get to do it. But yes, we always appreciate you because what we do realize is you could be doing something else with your time, but you choose to tune in. And with that being said, we would love for you to share this with your friends, your family, your coworkers. You know, it's a nice way to be able to share good conversation about relationships in a non-intimidating way, right?
Exactly. And I don't. I also don't want to take this for granted, guys. The last 3 episodes, Rachel has been producing the show. So I want you guys to put in the comment
Uh-oh.
box if you've enjoyed the last 3 shows, because I mean, she has really, gone above and beyond to put these shows together. So if you have been truly informed and entertained by Rachel's producing,
Inform and entertain.
yes,
So I'm a
yes,
joke now?
no, you're an entertainer for sure,
Jimmy
as
Rogers.
well as an educator.
You
That's
have
what I'm
got
just
to,
saying.
thank you, Stephen. You
Yeah,
have got to admit to your part
right.
in this delivery that we have going on since my production.
I'm following your lead, sweetheart. That's all. That's all.
Yeah, he already starting. He wants to put it. You know, it started off sounding like a compliment
It is a compliment.
and quickly going down this slippery slope. Let me just say hey to Stephen, Betty, Carla, Angela. Those are our regs. You know, they come on and they are our ride or dies. They come on early before the show even starts and they just sit and wait. And we thank you so much. But this production thing, it's intense, not because it's production, but just in the combination of school. You know, as y'all know, many of y'all may know, may not. I'm an educator, and I feel like my time off is spent preparing for virtual learning and preparing for this. And so, um, what I am happy about though is both of the things I'm preparing for is productive
Right.
and it's not in vain, and it's all to help people, and that's what I love to do. So,
Amen. All
with
right.
that being said,
Well, let's go ahead and get into
let's
your
get into it.
production today.
Yes, but let's be clear about this one thing. We have to be very careful, Jimmy Rogers.
Oh, wow.
I said we, but I said Jimmy Rogers about
Mhm.
trying to like put blame on things, on one person when it comes to things.
Blame?
Yeah, because you said entertaining, and I think it was. I don't think we would just put that on me. Okay, I'll just
Okay.
put that
All
there.
right.
There we go. I think we can go ahead and get started.
There we go.
Um, if you're new to watching us, go ahead and put down the city you're repping from.
That's right. We love to know
If
where our viewers are
yes,
listening and watching from.
and if you and go ahead, baby. I was
No, go
cutting
ahead.
you off. No, I was just gonna say, even if you have told us where you're watching from, not everybody always knows it. So go ahead and put that there. Thank you, Carla and Betty, for sharing. We always appreciate that. What else were you gonna say, hon?
Oh, that's it. That's all I had.
That's all you got?
That's all I got.
Okay, guys. Many of you have probably seen videos of this, or maybe you've participated in a game called Would You Rather.
Yeah.
So let me tell you my concept behind the third series that we're doing. Because I was telling Jimmy, we have these in-depth conversations and they're great, but I really wanted our audience to get to know us and about who we are because it just helps you appreciate a little bit more our story as well as the information that we're putting out there. You appreciate a little bit more. And we get to have a little bit of fun together. So, although we have some fun, there's always a point to this. We always want to make sure and drive it home because at the end of the day, we want to help relationships thrive, right?
Yep. And also, don't forget, Don't
All
forget,
right.
we're also streaming live simultaneously on
Uh-oh.
YouTube
Uh-oh.
Live.
Was that an upgrade we
Don't,
just did?
yeah, that was an upgrade.
So your comments go to our YouTube live page. And by the way, there's some people who don't want to fool with Facebook. They don't want to comb through all that. We have a page on YouTube.
Hmm.
And I've been uploading all of our videos, but now of course, for quite some time now, we just didn't think about doing it. You can broadcast simultaneously on Facebook and YouTube. So go to Relationship Real Talk Show.
Yep.
You can catch up on some old episodes back before we had this new set, when we were still trying to figure it all out. Quiet as kept, we still trying to figure it all out. But yes, go ahead and tell your people about that.
All right.
But so your comments will be shown both places. All right. So would you rather? Let me just first explain. If you've ever played Would You Rather, pretty much it's a series of questions, and the way the questions are phrased, many times you don't want to pick either side, or you want to pick a little bit of one side and a little bit of the other.
Hmm.
But it's pretty much what we call in education forced choice. Like you're given a choice, but you're only given two, and you got to pick one. You can't stand in the middle.
And sometimes they both suck.
Sometimes they both suck.
Right.
So we've asked each other questions. I'm going to go ahead and tell you, he's seen my questions and I've seen his. And the good news is, last week, with the way the game was, it was about getting to know one another. So it mattered that we didn't see each other's questions. This go around, I decided to show him questions for two reasons. Number one, it didn't matter that he knew what they were. But number two, which is really number one, we didn't want to go through what we went through last week with him not really understanding how this game works. So there you have it. Sometimes you have to scaffold. So with that being said,
You just couldn't help yourself.
babe, listen, this is called relationship what?
Real talk.
Real. Stress the real.
Mhm.
All right, so I'm going to start. And by the way, everything, we're doing today as it relates to expectations, there are links there for you to refer to after we're done. But I just want to go ahead and say, do you believe you shouldn't have expectations in a relationship? I have heard people saying that. Like, they'll say, oh, well, I heard you're not supposed to have any expectations. And that kind of scares me because as far as I'm concerned, I think there should definitely be some expectations
You're right.
tied to negotiables and non-negotiables. And the question is, how do you know if your expectations are realistic or not? I think that's what the key thing is, not
Right.
whether or not you should have a relationship or
Right,
not,
right.
but are they realistic or not?
Yeah, there
And
you go.
sometimes you can end up with a lot of conflict and feeling like your relationship is crap because you have these unrealistic expectations, these preconceived notions, things that your mom did, things that your dad did that are really unrealistic, and then you project it into your relationship and things are rocky, and they
Well-
don't have to be.
Well, let me make a clarification. There. They may be unrealistic in your relationship.
Right, right.
Because you and your mom, if you are a woman, you're not the same people. And your husband and your dad are not the same people. So
Right.
sometimes we can bring expectations from, our family into
The
the
relationship.
relationship with our spouse and expecting them to do what our mom or dad did, and now we're
Right.
disappointed.
And not only are you different people, but the relationship is different.
Exactly.
The relationship
exactly.
you have with a parent is different from the relationship you have with a spouse. Although if you saw your father do something as a husband with your mother, you may think that's what my husband's supposed to do with me.
Right.
Right? And it doesn't mean that something is wrong with your with your expectations all the time. It just means you got to be mindful of what it is, how it's affecting your partner, and is it something that's worth tanking the relationship over
Right.
because you're not getting what you want. So you got to be willing to make the adjustments and self-analyze. That's pretty much what we're saying here. So let's go ahead and start the game with that being said. All right, so my questions are for Jimmy, okay? Y'all already know how he plays games, so let's get ready. All right, so question number one. He's probably already thought about his answer.
I have not. I really
You haven't?
No.
You haven't studied this?
I really
Okay,
haven't.
wonderful. So he says, would you rather stay in for a date or go out for a date? Like if you had to choose, would you rather stay in for a date or go out for a date?
Go out.
He would rather go out. And mind you, as you guys listen to these questions, we try to phrase them in such a way that they could be tied to one's expectations.
Right.
So that question It could be tied to his expectations of what a date looks like and what I think a date looks like. All right. Number two, would you rather clean the kitchen or wash and fold clothes?
Clean the kitchen.
Wow. That's interesting. I would have never guessed that you would have said that. Why do you prefer to clean the kitchen over
That's not a
washing and
part of
folding?
the. That's not a part of the
Baby, this
five
is still
questions.
dialogue. I mean, we're going
We're
to be done in 10, 15 minutes.
mm,
This is part of the dialogue.
well, I don't personally like washing and folding clothes.
Well, let me tell you what's interesting. Because when we first got married, you would wash clothes. You throw them in there. They're clean, but they're in a basket. You're not folding them. But yet you weren't necessarily cleaning the kitchen. And now you're cleaning the kitchen. We have weeks now that, our older kids are gone. I still don't trust my 11-year-old to clean dishes. It's all suspect, even though you let him last week. I'm still upset about that. But anyway,
Uh,
you now will clean the kitchen.
right.
So what changed?
Nothing changed. You just admitted that I would wash them, but I wouldn't fold
Uh, But before you weren't cleaning the kitchen at all.
them. Okay.
Okay. Question number 3.
Hmm.
Would you have your partner work at home or away from home?
See, that's one of those combination ones.
There we
But
go.
we'll go with away.
So you would rather me be outside of the home working than in the home working.
Yes.
That's a shocker to me.
Okay.
And it's not a shocker because I have a problem with working away from home. It's just that you're usually, all right, let's do this together, together, together. What made you choose away from home?
Well, because
Excuse me.
when we are,
Excuse me.
bless you,
Mhm.
when we are normally at home together for work, like during this COVID-19,
Mhm.
um, we sometimes can be each other's distraction when we're trying to work.
And who's being whose distraction? Like for real, for real.
Like I said, we
I
sometimes
do.
can be each other's
Jimmy
distraction.
Dwayne Rogers.
What?
Please tell the truth. When you are working up here, I do not distract you or bother you.
You may not distract me often.
Y'all, Jimmy,
Mm.
here's what I'm going to say. I think I might be a distraction to you because you know I'm here.
Okay.
And you like to stop and pop in while I'm having meetings and stuff.
Either
But
way, it
I
goes.
don't come up here.
Distraction.
But you come to me 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 11, 12 times. All right? With
Four,
that
five,
being
what?
6, 7, 8,
11.
11, 12 times. All right, number 4. Would you rather spend money on a boat or save money for a house?
I mean, if we don't have a home, save money for the house.
Well, I'm saying like we're currently in a home now, right?
But I'm yeah.
But let's say it's another house
Mm-hmm.
and or a boat, a brand new boat. Which would you choose?
It'll be the house.
It'd be the house. All
Mhm.
right. I'm not gonna ask you why, because you
The
you
house. The house has long term value.
I got you. I got you. 5. Would you rather? Now this one we had to make. It's only 5 questions each because we want to get into the whole expectations things a little bit more. Would you rather initiate sex all the time or have sex initiated all the time?
Have sex initiated.
So if you had to go the rest of your life, as far as initiation is concerned, you would rather the rest of your life me initiate as opposed to you initiating all the time.
Well, as you articulated before we got started, neither one of these answers would be my choice.
But if you had to choose,
But if I gotta choose, I
you'd
would say,
rather it be me all the time.
Yeah, because then I know you want it.
Y'all, I don't know why he's doing that dance. I don't know what that's supposed to conjure up. But okay, this is interesting to know. This is
Okay.
interesting to know, and I'm glad you cleared that up. Not that that's the expectation,
Right.
but because you had to choose, that's how you would choose. Okay,
Exactly.
no problem.
All right. My
you,
turn.
you did all right with that. That was much better than last week. I will give you a 5
Well, thank you.
out of 10.
5 out of 10.
Yeah, because last week it was a 1-2.
But why does last week have to do anything with?
Because
this
it's
week's
about growth,
performance?
growth mindset. That's what we told the people.
So, out of 10, I only get a 5.
Oh yeah, because if you get a 10, there's no more growth.
Well, I didn't say it had to be a 10.
Yeah, I think that's huge to go from a 1 to a 5.
Oh,
Keep up the
wow.
good work, baby.
Okay.
All right, go
All right.
ahead.
Um, Your first question: would you rather take care of the yard work or do all of the housework?
I think if I had to choose,
Mm-hmm.
I would rather take care of the yard work.
Mm.
I knew that would surprise you.
Mm.
Carla said you should have got a 3.
Carla, the devil's a lie. That was
Yes.
since you don't want to give me a 10, that was a 9.9 performance right there.
You
But
can't do
anyway,
yours based on what I say.
um, um,
Hmm.
number two,
Oh,
would you?
I'm surprised you didn't say anything about number
I'm
1.
not gonna even go with that.
I was going to tell you
I'm
why.
not gonna play with it. Go ahead.
I'm going to tell you
Why?
why.
Why would you
Because you
choose the
said
yard?
take care of the yard work or do all of the housework.
Mm-hmm.
I can take care of the yard work by having a yard man. I call him and he comes in and
See,
takes care of the yard
there
work.
we go.
And the yard, because of where we live in the fall, winter, there's about almost like 5, 6 months where it doesn't even have to be tended to. Once everything is,
Girl, when do we
Jimmy,
go 5 to 6 months without taking care of ourselves?
Jimmy, when the grass dies
Mm-hmm.
and lies dormant till the spring again,
Mm.
you're not cutting the grass year round. You know that. A lot of people don't cut.
I didn't.
Now, if you live in like Florida, my
I won't.
Miami
I won't talk.
people,
Go ahead.
but in my Miami people, they're gonna cut all year round. But after a while, the grass turns brown. Everything is trim. It's cold. It's snowing. There is no cutting going on.
Gotcha.
But that take care of, yeah, yard man. I need you to come every blah blah blah. Doing all the housework is a whole different ball game. All the time, every day, 365.
Okay.
All right.
Would you spend time with your spouse or spend time alone?
Okay, if I had to choose, because like you, a healthy balance of both is
Mm-hmm.
good.
Mm-hmm.
But because I'm married, I'm not gonna choose spend time alone. Because then, what's the purpose of me being married if I'm spending only all my time alone? So I would choose spend time with my spouse.
Good answer.
Why do you say it like that?
I just said
I
good
don't
answer.
trust your hidden undertones.
That was a good
Okay,
answer.
go ahead for the next
Number
one.
3, would you rather do something extra or new to make more money or only earn money from your current job?
Well, I think that answer is kind of obvious because that's what we're currently doing. Do something extra or new to make more money.
Mhm.
Now, is it at a cost? Yes.
Mm.
Time and energy. But yes, I would choose that first option.
Okay. Would you rather have your partner talk more or less?
That is an easy question. And I'm so shocked he asked me this question because literally what he has just done is cleared the ground,
Uh,
laid down the concrete, let it
uh,
dry, and now I can walk across it.
as they say,
Because
I just threw you a softball.
you just
Go
threw me a
ahead.
softball. Like
Hit
it's
it.
right there.
Slow pitch.
Since you are my partner,
Mm-hmm.
the way I would answer that is talk less
Gotcha.
because it's about quality, not quantity.
Gotcha. All right.
Exclamation,
So
exclamation, exclamation.
be careful of your answer, Rachel. It will come back.
To bite you later.
There you go, sister. You see how I'm doing this? All
Yeah, this
right.
says extra.
All right.
Uh-huh.
The last one. The last one.
Mhm.
Would you rather expose your faults to improve your relationship or protect your ego and pride?
Now, I thought this question is interesting
Mm-hmm.
because I think one part of it represents what human nature would want to do,
Mm-hmm.
and the other part of it represents what's healthy for your relationship.
Gotcha.
So if I'm trying to be healthy for my relationship,
Mm-hmm.
exposing my faults to improve my relationship is what I would choose when I'm thinking about longevity.
Okay.
All right. It doesn't mean that protecting your ego and pride, I think as humans, we all tend to default to that if we're not careful.
Exactly.
But I want to be intentional about exposing my faults. My only issue with that is sometimes your partner um, brings something across as if it's a fault or misinterprets what you're trying to do.
Mm.
And so it's like, no, I can't take ownership of something that I did not do.
Mm-hmm.
Although I can't take it away from you that it might be that way. Carla says, you are so analytical. You must be a teacher. Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
She
yes.
must be a
So
politician.
it's
Yeah,
all about analysis. You just call me a politician
Mm.
and you still living at 3465? All right. No problem. No problem. All right. So, guys, as y'all can.
whoa,
That was the
whoa,
last. What?
Whoa. I just want to tell you, you did pretty darn good answering those questions.
Okay. I mean, when you say I did good, like in comparison to last week, I did good. Last week I
Oh,
did good.
see, last
This week I did good.
let me explain
Last week I
something.
won.
I judge you by today's actions, not last week's actions.
Oh,
Right?
and I'm glad you used the word judge
Mm-hmm.
because last I checked,
Mm-hmm. Grade, whatever you want to
you are
call it.
not supposed to be the judge.
Grade, judge,
Okay, okay.
evaluate,
So
analyze.
oh
Which
wow.
one of them would you like?
Let's just say that, we've had a good session with Would You Rather. So there's a bunch of Would You Rather questions out there.
uh,
They're a lot of fun. We decided to go
uh,
with the expectation route, but you can ask all kind of Would You Rather. Would you rather eat a bug or go a week without bathing? I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that
yeah,
they come
I
up
saw
with.
some crazy
You
ones.
saw some crazy
Yeah.
ones. All right, so but let's get down to the nitty gritty of why we did that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're talking about realistic and unrealistic expectations. So let's get our audience back involved because that's what makes what we do really exciting because our audience they get a little they get excited, they get hyped, they start to get involved in this situation and conversation. So I would like to know from the audience, think about whether you're in a relationship right now, have been in a relationship, dating, married. I want you guys to put in the chat what you think would be a realistic expectation of a significant other.
Mm.
All right? Because before I show you what we're going to show you guys, I really want to hear from you first. What would be a realistic expectation? And I think a lot of us would say stuff like respect, love, honor.
And you
No,
don't give them
no,
answers.
no, pause. There's a reason why I'm giving them that because I want them to go deeper. I want you to go more practical. Like, we know respect, but like, what does that look like?
Right.
We know love, but what does that look like? You
Mm-hmm.
follow me?
Mm-hmm.
So, at this time, go ahead and drop right there for us. What do you feel is a realistic expectation? Because if you do this part, this next part, you're going to get so much more out of it.
Exactly.
All right? All right. What do we got? Do we have some answers dropping yet?
Nope.
Some realistic expectations. So while we're waiting for them to drop, we're going to put ourselves on the spot. Babe, what do you think is a realistic expectation um, that you should have of me?
Well, um, when I think of us, I think of us in the context of our relationship. I don't want it to be just some generic response.
Right.
A real expectation for me, for you, would be that um, that you would put our marriage first before career, before whatever. You know what I'm saying? That should be first.
Okay.
That would be what I would consider a realistic
A
expectation.
realistic expectation. Okay. I was gonna go with something a little bit more simple, but since I told them to dig deep, I'm gonna dig deep. I think a realistic expectation for that I would have of you
Mm-hmm.
is to be considerate of my needs.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say considerate of my needs, whether it be as it relates to my love language or needs for security,
Mm-hmm.
I think consideration is a realistic expectation. Now,
Mm-hmm.
to go deeper into that conversation would be, Rachel, what does that look like to
Right,
you?
right, and
All
that was
right,
that was actually going to be my question.
right, and
So
so
when we say that, you know, and that's what I want you guys to hear out there. When you have this conversation with your significant other, when you give them what that expectation is, you also have to be able to define what it looks like in your day to day living.
right.
So now your spouse has an idea of what that looks like and how that would operate on a day to day basis.
Okay, so we got a couple of we'll get to those. We'll give them a little bit more time.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't we respond to each other, and then we'll start with you because you were the one that first said me putting you first. I mean, yes, me putting you above work and everything.
Right.
So what does that look like?
Well, what does that look like to me? It would look like to me understanding that you are expendable at your job, but not in your family.
Okay.
and too often we will give 150% for our careers.
So what does that look like?
That would look like, um, um, when you're home, be present. Don't be home physically, but mentally or
Okay.
emotionally at work, or
Okay.
trying to come up with the next thing to do for work.
Okay. So mentally
Hmm.
being present is putting you first.
Right.
Is that what you're saying?
Exactly.
Got it. Um
So what would you be saying, or what would you define, being considerate of your, um,
oh, considerate period.
mhm,
Gosh, I would say being considerate would mean oh, and I think this one is something that a lot of women can relate to, but I was trying to think of something that was more recent, but um being considerate means if I am, if you see me going all day and there's a certain need that we have as a family, that you step up to that need regardless of it's if it's something that Rachel might usually do. But you know what? Rachel has her hands full. I'm going to go ahead and lighten her load and do this. That is consideration to me. Now, let me put an asterisk there.
mhm.
That may not be the best example because if you even if you don't do it, I won't necessarily be mad, but if you did do it, I would take that as, wow, how considerate of him,
Mm.
because he didn't have to do that, but he did it anyway. But I guess in day-to-day stuff, I guess it would be if we're having a conversation
Mhm.
and I've said something, it's not dismissed and you've taken what I've said into consideration. All right? All right, all right. We got some comments. Angela is lighting us up here. She says deep communication weekly. All right. Show daily appreciation. I hear you. Um, Carla said, I need him to love himself, which will flourish in any relationship he comes into contact with. Carla, that is so deep, what you just said. And a lot of people don't always talk about the other person loving themselves, but that does manifest itself into a situation where if they don't love themselves, there's a whole lot of stuff they're projecting on you and they're needing from you that they should have gotten from their own sense of self worth and value. You follow me?
Oh, clearly, I definitely follow you. How can you expect someone else to love you when you don't even know how to love yourself?
That's
That's that's an impossible feat.
right.
So yes, that is very powerful,
And you
Carla.
will and here's what will happen in that kind of situation. The person that doesn't love themselves, the relationship will always lose because the other person, even if they're trying to make that person feel good and feel fulfilled, it's like there's a hole at the bottom of the bag.
Right.
So they're never going to be successful. So the other person is just going to get tired and weary. I'm over it. I'm tired. And then the person who doesn't love themselves are always going to feel as if they're empty and that person is not meeting their needs.
Exactly. I want to go back to another comment because, this is one of the ones. Angela said deep communication weekly.
What does that look like? Is that what you're thinking about?
Not only what does that look like to Angela, but also what does that look like to, say, her spouse? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And sometimes, and guys, I got to put this out here as it relates to communication, because we have to understand that there's two parts to communication being successful. That is one, expressing your thoughts and feelings, and then the other is compliance. Because we normally revisit a conversation when nothing has changed. And I hear a lot of people, and especially women, I hear
Uh
women
oh.
mainly
Uh oh.
are the ones who complain about communication. But
Right.
when we break down their communication style, typically it's more of a lecture, and typically nothing is changing. Therefore, they keep revisiting the same issue,
Right.
right? And so for men, the one thing we don't like is being lectured to. Two, when your man shuts down and
Mm-hmm.
doesn't want to talk, it's
Mm-hmm.
typically because what he has said to you is either dismissed, denied,
Mm-hmm.
ignored.
Right.
And so when it's time for you to have your emotional needs met,
Mm-hmm.
he's like, whatever.
Do you feel as if men lecture to women?
I do believe there are times when yeah. I mean, I think both men and women go through that phase. Go through that phase. Let's just say if it wasn't their natural um, default. After a while, anyone, both male and female, when you don't feel like you're being heard, you will lecture at some
Right.
point. You know what
Right.
I'm saying?
Right.
You will begin to because you're trying your best to
Right.
get your message across.
And here's the thing about when she says deep communication weekly,
Mm-hmm.
and I get what she's saying. It's kind of like we need to connect.
Right.
Everything doesn't need to be like surface. We're just kind of
Right.
going through day by day.
That's what I got
How
too.
right. However, I will say this as it relates to deep communication. Um, Kind of like as you're having that deep communication, make sure it doesn't become, especially for someone who may not like to communicate as much.
Mm-hmm.
Initially, it might be difficult to um, get that person to go in on deep communication for an hour or two.
Right.
It might, like I say, quality over quantity.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, you might have a system where every week we're checking in,
Mm-hmm.
but that check in doesn't necessarily have to be for hours because what that will
Gotcha.
do is
Burn them
that
out.
will burn them out and turn them off to, oh my gosh, let me get ready for this, as opposed to this is actually meaningful. I've been watching Married at First Sight. It's just fascinating to me. It's like the modern day version of a fixed marriage, and just to see, you have these psychologists and sociologists and pastors that look at these questions that they've answered to see who matches. And one of the things they have the contestants do is have a naked moment,
Mm-hmm.
and that naked moment is when you can say whatever you want to say about that other person, something that they did, how it made you feel,
Mm-hmm.
but you can't say anything. Like you're letting them get it off their chest,
Right.
and vice versa. Now, after that, you can discuss. I'm glad you shared that. That's something I need to work on, because what I liked about it is it doesn't, it shouldn't turn into an argument, because at the end of the day, their feelings may not be correct, but that is at that moment is how they feel, and you have to go back and analyze what part you may have played or not have played in whatever it is that they told you, because you could be telling me something, Jimmy,
Mm-hmm.
and the minute you tell it to me, I might be thinking that ain't true,
Mm-hmm.
that's not what I'm doing. But if I just sit here and listen to you and just take it in and start to think, what could I be doing that could even make him feel that way,
Mm-hmm.
and what part could I be playing in that?
Yeah, there's a couple that we follow. They're called Denali, and that's Oliver
Mm-hmm.
and Denise, and they talk about this habit that we have during conflict, and it's called what is it called? Attorney listening, or in other words, you're listening for one thing in what they're saying that's wrong.
You're waiting to advocate for yourself.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
no, no. You're fine. You're looking for one little thing that they say
Right.
in their conversation,
Right.
so you can build your defense on it, and
Right.
you dismiss everything else that they
Right.
said because you found one little thing. And I
Right.
think all of us, when we have not reached that level of maturity in conflict, we don't have we do not have the capacity to be told that we're not as good as we have made ourselves think we are.
Right.
And it hurts us for someone to tell us we're not as glorious as we have told ourselves and others that will listen.
That's
So
right.
when your spouse, and here's the amazing thing, your spouse is probably the most accurate person in the world to know your faults because they see you when no one else sees you.
And we're gonna put an asterisk next to that, but I get exactly
They
what you're
they
saying.
see you when no one else see you. They see what you don't want the rest of the world to see. But it seems as if when they point that stuff out to us, we deny it and we fight it. And I often say our spouse is like our mirror. When you walk in front of the mirror before you leave your house and you find a discrepancy in your outfit or in
Mm-hmm.
your hair, you don't argue with the mirror.
Right. Right.
You literally just go and change, or you go. So when your spouse says you do this This is what you do on a regular basis, or you did that. Instead of us going in the closet and changing, we gonna argue.
But let me just say this, and this is key, and I've heard this over and over. Psychologists will tell you everything. Many times, I think where couples kind of bump heads is when the other partner is saying, "You do this, you did this." All right, don't get me wrong. It doesn't mean that that's not what they did from that person's perspective. However, when you turn that thing around to how this made me feel, nobody could take that away from you about how it made you feel. Because let's say, for example, babe, you said something to me, right? And you said, Rachel, you did this, and you thought I did this, and you're lying. All right?
Mm-hmm.
For me,
Mm-hmm.
in my mind, what I said to you or what I did was not a lie. But for you, you said it was a lie. So what you did was you've already casted the judgment, and it puts the person on a defense, which is why they always tell you, stick with the facts. This is what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And you both agree that is what happened. Here's how it made me feel.
Right,
Because
but
once
you
you
just described something
What's that?
that is pivotal
What's that, hun?
and debunks anything any psychologist can say on that matter.
Okay.
If you identify something that they actually did and they deny that they did it,
Right.
you're lying.
That I agree with.
I mean, so but hold, wait,
okay.
But too often, that's what's happening in relationships.
I agree with you.
Too often, we have done whatever it is that we have been accused of, but we don't want to take ownership of
I
it.
totally agree with you.
So now I gotta play these little games with you on, well, this is how it made me feel.
That's not a game, babe.
It
That's
is a game.
No, that is important.
I should be able to tell you, you know you did that.
Babe.
We got it on tape. We got you recorded, you said it. But if you don't want to accept it, that you did it.
I think you're misinterpreting what I'm saying.
Okay.
I'm agreeing with exactly what you're saying. If it's black and white and it is clear that that is what happened and you both just saw it, I get that part.
Okay.
I'm talking
That's all I was
about
talking about.
when you're talking about something that is abstract based on someone's perspective.
So totally different.
But that's what I'm trying to say. Like trying to interpret their heart or where they were coming from, or you did this. That's what you did. You were being this. I can't even think of the words right now. When it's something that's not black and white, you got to be careful because all that does is make the walls go up.
I agree.
Because now you're saying something to me that I know in my heart of hearts
Right.
is not true.
Yeah. Anybody that says something like, you meant this, you were thinking this.
Right.
Now you can't accurately say that.
Right.
But what you can say is,
right.
this is what you said,
Right.
and this is what you did.
Right.
Because that was the example.
Right.
I can't tell you what you was thinking and what you meant.
There you go.
But I can definitely tell you what you actually did and what you actually said.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
She said, but why go through all that? I'm wondering what she's thinking about.
That's what I'm talking about.
All right.
When we're having those type conversations, I think we need to be able to maturely self-analyze in the heat of the moment.
Definitely.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, it's so funny. Yesterday we were a part of it was having a conversation with other couples, and there was a couple. I can't remember their names. The Freemans, and they do a lot of conflict stuff. And they said sometimes it's better to deal with the conflict when you're not heated.
Right. Sometimes.
Yeah, because what happens is
because your emotions are out of control.
Right.
Right.
And
exactly.
so
we agree with that.
it might be a thing of where it could be something you got to settle right then, but it could be like during a more reduced, anxiety
state.
and emotional state. That's when you kind of bring it up, and that's when people are more ready to receive it. And that goes back to my original point: is that whole naked moment? That naked moment doesn't happen when everybody is tense.
Right.
It literally happens when things are just kind of relaxed. You feel like this might be a right time. It's just me and you. We're talking, and boom.
I like the whole naked moment concept. The only way that works is if you're dealing with two mature people in that moment.
Well,
Because if you're being naked with me, telling me how you felt about something I did or said or whatever, if I choose to take offense to what you said, and it's true, right? That whole thing going out the window.
But here's what I think is important about that. That's why it's so important for both people to be on the same page as it relates to the direction that you're going.
Exactly.
Because even if at that point, because during the naked moment, remember, I should know if you think that's true or not because you're not commenting on it.
Hmm.
You're just allowing me to say
Right.
what
That's
I'm saying
again.
and
That's what I'm
vice
saying.
versa.
It,
And
it
so,
has to be two mature people in that
right,
moment.
right.
Especially the person that's receiving the
Receiving
information.
it.
That person has to be willing to say, in spite of what they're feeling
Right,
internally,
right,
just sit there, swallow it,
right.
let it,
Marinate,
right,
masticate on, like chew that thing.
right,
Or,
and then because here's what really happens, and when you first told me about that exercise, I said that could be a powerful exercise if the two people were
right,
mature,
right.
because if I am guilty of something that genuinely hurt you, and I see the hurt in your body language, I see it in your
Mm-hmm.
expression, that should move me.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah,
It should
definitely.
move me. And although I don't like how you're describing me,
Right.
but I can actually say I did do that or I did say that, that should move me to change.
And I think it's important to go back to that saying, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? And sometimes I think in the midst of being told something, people are so busy wanting to be right. Like, that's not, I don't think what you said is correct about me. And they don't want to sit in that feeling of they were actually wrong or they wronged the other
Well, you
person.
like, well, you said they want to be right. No, they just don't want to be wrong.
That's yeah, they don't want to be
Right,
wrong,
right.
but the opposite of wrong
Wrong
is
is right,
right.
right, right.
But like that makes them very uncomfortable and like
Yeah,
you said, I do believe that both have to be mature enough, and that's an area of growth
right.
for a couple, you know.
And let's just be true, guys. I mean, because we can sit here and go back and forth on that, but the truth is, we all are not as good at that as we should be.
That's right.
And unfortunately, after a while of practicing that lack of maturity,
Mm-hmm.
it it damaged the relationship more than we understand. And this is the analogy I will use, um, of what it's like trying to communicate with someone who rejects everything that you say about them.
Right.
That's bothering you, right?
Right.
This is the analogy I'll use. Imagine you're sitting in your house, but what you don't know is that underneath your house, somebody's digging a tunnel.
That sounds creepy.
No,
I
they're not
know.
trying to get into your
I
house,
know. I'm just
but they're digging a tunnel
hmm
under your house. They're
hmm
going past your house. They're trying to
Okay.
get to another destination.
Yeah.
But what's happening to the foundation that your house is on?
It's weakening.
It's being weakened, right?
Right.
And that's what we do to our relationship every single time we deny reality.
We dig a tunnel.
What's happening is, no, we're chipping away at the
Oh,
foundation
okay.
of
Okay.
our relationship. And
Right.
what happens after that foundation gets weak enough?
Mm-hmm.
Whatever is built on top of it eventually is going to cave in.
And let me just say this, and I'll move on to more people's comments. What you just said is critical, but I think what also is critical is you and your partner developing a connection to the point where you become a safe place for each other to even be able to share.
Exactly.
Because if, I mean, you could be bringing some stuff and some legitimate stuff,
Hmm.
but if it always goes left, if they always start arguing, if they always start, it's like we're never going to get anywhere.
My point exactly.
But both people have to be committed and say, you know what, regardless of what we're going through, even if I don't like what you're saying, you don't like what I'm saying. Let's create a safe space so we could at least talk about it.
And that's
Um,
that as a Christian, as a
mhm.
Christian, I just I employ people to be lovers of the truth, not lovers of your feelings, but lovers of the truth. The more we can embrace the truth about us, the truth about, our spouse, the truth about our lives, at that point is when we will really see a shift in our relationships. As long as we are rejecting the truth
Right,
about ourselves, about, our
right,
spouse,
right,
about, our lives, we prolong this
right.
state of stagnation,
And,
and instead of growing.
right.
And I'm telling you, unfortunately, in today's society, we are
Mhm.
being cultivated
Mm-hmm.
not to like the truth.
Right.
We're being cultivated to only operate on how you feel.
Right.
And in most cases, our feelings are so wrong. You know
And
what I'm
here's what's
saying?
so deep
And
about
they're
what you're
so
saying.
misleading.
Right. Here's so deep about what you're saying. And when it comes to a relationship, when when just imagine two people on a boat and they're in a relationship and there are two anchors and each of them grab an anchor and it's like, well, I'm holding on to mine and I'm holding on to mine and you're both casting your anchors on opposite sides, right? And the boat, you really want to move, but nobody wants to say, you know what? I'm gonna lift up my anchor so that we can move. And now you lift up your anchor so that we can move in that direction. You become at a standstill
Mm-hmm.
because you're so busy. I was just piggybacking off what you're saying. You're so busy trying to hold on to what you think your truth is when in actuality you need to open up and dig deep, because here's what I truly believe: you will only experience that true love and connection with your partner to the degree that you're willing to be vulnerable
Amen.
and do self-analysis.
That analogy that you use about the anchor. And let
Mhm.
me tell you something. And as a Christian, we pray for our spouses. We pray for our relationships. But when you're in a relationship where you try to be the mature when you pull up your anchor, but they left theirs down there, right?
Right.
The boat literally starts to follow the current.
That's right.
So if the current is blowing this direction, the boat will start to do this. It will just start to circle,
That's right.
you know, or it will just go in one direction, and that may be the wrong direction.
Right.
But when both of you all have pulled up the anchor, now you're either able to use your motor or your paddles to paddle even
Right.
against the current if you
Right.
have to. You know what I'm saying?
And as you're paddling, let's go with that paddle analogy.
Mm-hmm.
We can go into next week with these analogies now. As you're paddling, you ideally you both want to be paddling in the same manner so that you're going in the same direction.
Right.
However, sometimes there one partner might be weaker
Right.
in one area, so that means the other partner has to overcompensate. And so when that partner is overcompensating, they might start to get weak, and the other partner has to hold and pull their weight. So it's a constant balancing act that's taking place, but you're still progressing
Right.
and moving forward. Do you get tired? Yes, because it requires work. But that work worth it? Most definitely, it
And
should
that's
be.
why these expectations are so important.
Yes,
Having realistic expectations
yes,
can play a major role in your success.
yes.
In the success of your relationship. So, go ahead to the next one. I mean, because that I think we need to.
Well, we need to actually, now that they've kind of talked about the expectations, we'll go ahead and lay out how do you know if your expectations are real or not. But I
Mm,
did want to read some of the things that was being said. I didn't want to look over it. And Betty, I want you to explain, but why go through all of that? I want you to explain. I can't remember what we were talking about at the time that you said it. But Angela says show daily appreciation.
mm-hmm,
Carla says I need him to. Okay, we read that one.
mm-hmm,
Angela says show daily affection,
mm-hmm,
attention. Carla says your significant other needs to know your love language.
mm-hmm,
His or hers may be different. Definitely, we tend to speak our language more fluently.
mm-hmm.
Men lecture
Definitely.
when they are fed up. So true.
Mm-hmm.
Carla says, for example, if she's cooking for him and you think he's loving it, but he may love to go out to eat. You know what? That is so important what you just said, Carla,
Mm.
because I know, part of the way we were raised, my mother hardly ever, I don't remember her taking us out to eat.
Right.
She cooked every day. And if it was leftovers, leftover rice and peas, she was cooking meat to go with it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, not that I love going out to eat, but yet there's a part of me that's ingrained in me. If I'm not cooking for my family, I just feel a type of way, like I'm not taking care of
As you
them.
should.
And see, that's what I can't stand about my husband sometimes. See, we just finished talking about safe place.
No,
We
no,
just finished talking.
no.
No, 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 no,
I'm
no, no.
agreeing with you,
When
baby.
when I'm saying something like that, I don't need you to come strong with it.
You don't want me to
What?
agree with you?
No, I don't want you to come strong with it, because at that point, that's your wife telling you like, I have this sense of nurturing. But it's like when you come like, yeah, like it's like yeah, like cook, like.
But here's the deal.
Mm-hmm,
Here's the deal. In
mm-hmm.
all transparency, that's
Okay.
not a problem we have.
It's. I know. Yeah,
I
I know it's
mean,
not a
you
problem.
you you definitely are one of the best cooks I know.
Thank you. That is so sweet.
I'm serious. You
I
are.
don't think you've ever told me that
Yes,
before.
I
You say you love my cooking. You've always said Rachel's a good cook, but I don't think you've ever said I'm one of the best cooks
You
you
are one
know.
of the best cooks I know. Yeah.
Y'all, that just did something for me.
My wife is one of the best
Oh
cooks I
my
know. That's the
gosh.
truth. So we don't have that issue. I mean,
Yeah, I know. I know.
yeah,
I was being facetious, but
I know you were, but I just wanted you to be affirmed that in that kitchen, you was a beast.
yes. And see that right there, that's showing me some consideration. Like, because I do feel
You
like
have been considered.
I do make sure I want to make sure I'm eating, I'm
Carla,
cooking.
talking about Jimmy, you asking for it tonight.
um,
Look, Denali's on. They said Oliver
as
and
you
Denise
should,
was going to my LOL as you should, LOL.
as you should. I know he's fresh. We were doing well there for a while, and then he just had to come in with that.
Babe, no, I was
But
affirming you.
I don't know. It was just something about your tone, and I think the people felt it.
Overlook
But
that.
I appreciate that. I appreciate you
You're
affirming
welcome.
me
You're welcome.
in that.
Anytime.
But let's go ahead and go over the. I think it's the 5 things
Mm-hmm.
that are. Was it 4 or 5, baby?
It's 5.
5 ways to know
Mm-hmm.
if your expectations are unrealistic. Now, let me tell you guys something. Some of you may have not shared it, and that's totally okay. But think about those expectations that you have and then test them against this. All
Mm.
right. The first thing is you expect your partner to think like you.
Uh-oh.
How many times have you held your partner accountable for something because they didn't process it
The way you did.
the way you did?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a moment of transparency here with my husband.
Uh-oh.
There's something that he tells me and he knows I cannot stand it.
Mm-hmm.
All right? It's if we're having a conversation and I say something and he'll say, why would you say that? Or why would you think of it like that? And it's because I think like me
Mm-hmm.
and you think like you.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Mm-hmm.
seek to understand it, but to say why almost makes it sound like I'm this I'm this person that's like has this crazy thinking. And so
Mm-hmm.
the expectation, when you think about that expectation, are you really expecting that person to think like you? Because we know that's impossible.
Yeah, and in all honesty, I think we're all guilty of it.
Yeah, I mean, to some degree, but
Yeah, I do. I believe because I mean I could definitely name several times, on the opposite end that's been the
I
case.
knew you were gonna
And
bring that
no,
up.
and I'm just saying that
Uh,
I just didn't see it that way. You know what I'm saying?
right, right, and
And,
I agree.
and because I I get it now, especially having this conversation. I
Hmm.
will definitely be more mindful
Yeah,
and
I
not
just think you
saying
do it a
why.
lot
That's my
because
default because when it don't
yeah,
make sense to me, I'm like,
because you're an analytical
why would you
thinker.
come that way? Out of all the ways you could have thought about that one,
Right.
that was
And for
it.
me, and sometimes others, it's like, no, that made complete sense.
Right.
So it's about appreciating one another. You may not think the same. All right.
Appreciating one another's creative way of thinking.
It could be creative or it could just be that was the way, that was the sum total of their experiences
Gotcha.
as it relates to that.
Okay.
All right. What's the next one, babe? What's the
The
second
next
way to
one
know?
is
This is cutting
you
me off.
expect everything to be perfect and there will be no conflict from time to time.
Now, this one is deep.
Mm-hmm.
And let me tell you why this one is deep. Some people get married and we all do this at some point or another. You look at other relationships and you're like, "Ooh, I wish my relationship was like this or I wish my relationship was like that,"
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because everything looks perfect, quote unquote, right? And so you start to dig yourself into this hole of like, "Oh, my relationship is not what it needs to be."
Mm-hmm.
And you start to feel bad about it. Or you get antsy when conflict comes up.
Right.
Oh my goodness, we're having conflict. My relationship's not
It's
perfect
over.
anymore.
It's over.
It's over.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
Or you don't ever want to discuss something
Right.
that is important to discuss because you want to be in that facade of feeling as if everything is perfect.
We call those the avoiders.
The avoiders.
The avoiders are the ones who try to, you know how people when something happen they be like let's just let it die down.
Just let it die because they want it. What they are is they're non-confrontational.
Right.
That's what you call that.
Mhm.
And then see,
The
this goes
avoiders.
back around to a point I was making people at the beginning. That can be taken. Let's say you're the one that is wanting to bring something up,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm the one that's like, I don't want to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then um, the issue becomes you can look at it as I can look at you as you just don't want to you just don't want this marriage to be successful.
Right.
You're always arguing. You're always bringing up something.
Hmm.
I just want it to be at peace. Well, that's kind of skewed.
Right.
That is the exact example I'm talking
Right.
about.
Right. Because it's
Because
not at peace.
because what I can say is you are bringing stuff up
Hmm.
that is causing conflict.
Right.
But it could be necessary conversation.
Exactly.
But it's the perspective
Hmm.
and the spin that the person is putting on it
Hmm.
that can derail that whole thing.
Exactly.
All right.
Exactly. So what's the next one, sweetie?
The next one is you expect your spouse to be perfect and never make mistakes. And
Yeah, I think that one is
this one's heavy.
super unrealistic. And I think what makes this one so unrealistic is because what you're simply saying is that you're perfect.
And let's be honest. What does that look like when you expect your spouse to be perfect? And y'all can comment on that.
Hmm.
But I can give you a one word answer.
What's that?
Critique. When you're constantly critiquing someone, I'm
Mm.
not saying there's anything wrong with constructive criticism.
But it shouldn't be constant.
I always say I always say this. You have constructive criticism and you have destructive criticism.
Hmm.
But I do believe that constructive criticism, like in the face of that, you can start to be destructive if you never leave room for growth. Because if somebody is like every little thing you do, they're telling you the right thing, but every little thing, every moment, it's like, well, you know what? Let me stop doing this because I feel like I can't even move or live
Hmm.
because every second, it's kind of like with your children.
Hmm.
Even though it's a different type of relationship, you want
The
to give
principle's
them,
the same, though.
yeah, the principle's the same.
Right.
You want to give them direction, you want to give them instruction and guidance, but you kind of want to give them that leeway to be able to make that correction. Because if you don't, guess what? That partner, that child, that spouse ends up feeling like, wow, well, I guess I can't do anything right.
Yeah, and that's why I say even if it's constructive criticism, it can't be continual. You understand what I'm saying?
When it comes to that,
Right.
yeah,
You could have the best advice in the world, but if your advice is behind every move they make, at some point it becomes overwhelming.
and whew, let's put this out there. And we need to have a discussion about this one day. The roles that you take in your relationship. It starts to become
You're
parent
the
child.
producer.
It starts to become parent child
Right.
as opposed
Well,
to no, listen to what I'm saying, baby. It can have that feel
gotcha.
of
Okay.
parent child
Gotcha.
as opposed to husband wife.
Right.
Because a parent and a child, even though a parent and a child can have a sort of friendship type of relationship where they're just hanging out having a good time, it's not always about me telling you what to do.
Right.
But same thing with a significant other. If they're constantly telling you every little thing, it's like, whoa, wait a minute.
Critiquing everything you do. Right.
I can't even move and do anything, and B, do you really like who I am?
Mhm.
If everything about me
Right.
creates that. Carla says close to perfect. More
Right.
like, why can't you see it? It's obvious. Oh, she
Right.
was
Right.
talking
Right.
about, when you expect somebody else to think like you.
Mhm.
But it really, really is a dangerous thing.
Mhm.
That whole perfection piece.
Right.
Yes.
Well, I think sometimes most of us, barring we're not a narcissist,
Right.
know that nobody's perfect.
Right.
However, as you stated, even when we are calling ourselves being helpful, being giving constructive criticism, if that constructive criticism is continual,
Mm-hmm.
it becomes everything you just described,
Right.
and it had all the well intentions, right?
Right. Or if not only if it's not just continual, if it's not balanced with some things that you are doing right.
My point exactly.
Because you could
Right.
you could space out your constructive criticism.
Well, let me make sure that you understand what I'm saying when I agree with you.
Go ahead.
I don't believe in the manipulation piece, like sandwich it. Let me tell you something good,
Mm-mm.
and then give you what I really want to say, and then close it off with something good too.
That's not what I'm referring
That's that old manipulation psychology.
I'm not. Yeah, I'm not even
I
talking
don't
about
like that.
manipulation. This is science. The more positive, like we said before, positive plus a negative, You subtract it and it takes the charge
Right.
of the greater
Right.
number.
So what you're saying is, and let me make sure that I
Mm-hmm.
understand you, because this is how I feel as well. If this is what you're saying,
Okay.
let's say throughout the course of the day,
Mm-hmm.
you did 10 things that I genuinely didn't like,
Mm-hmm.
right? But you did 5 things I truly liked. I'm not gonna tell you all 10 things that you didn't like, that I didn't like, but I'm probably gonna tell you all 5 things I did like. So when I finally bring up one thing that could have been improved, you've been filled with, oh wow, my husband he liked the dinner.
It's
Oh wow, he
that's what
liked
we're talking about, the same
right.
thing. It's about a balance.
Exactly.
The bottom line is words carry energy.
Mm-hmm.
Negative words carry negative energy.
Mm-hmm.
And if all you're doing is giving negative energy, it has nothing to do with pacifying someone. And remember, and I don't want to get into that conversation with you again about ill will and how your spouse's perspective is towards you. But if you know your spouse really wants the best for you, you shouldn't be thinking that when they are giving you constructive criticism, they mean any ill towards you.
Mm-hmm.
If anything, it's to make you better. However, on the flip side, it shouldn't always be something that can come across as critique,
Mm-hmm.
and you wonder, am I doing anything good? And that kind of goes back to what we were talking about a couple weeks ago, or maybe last week, that 80-20. Like, if you're always focusing on that 20% of what you didn't like, and you don't focus on that 80, then why are you even together?
Right.
Because you're not going to be happy. So you can't be myopic in your vision when it comes to that.
Exactly.
All
Exactly.
right. What were
Exactly.
She's,
Let's go to the,
oh no, they had power outages.
yeah.
She missed the whole conversation.
Yeah, Betty said that
Yeah.
she missed it.
All right. Angela's saying some stuff.
Yeah, I was gonna go to that.
Go for it.
Um, Angela said when dating, the game was on. The expectation should not have changed so drastically once you get married. Um,
Were we faking just to get a spouse?
and let me just say this: in a lot of cases, yeah, you know what I'm saying.
Well, sometimes people are.
No, in a lot of cases,
I don't know. I can't say a
listen.
lot.
Well, no, I'm
Take that down.
in
so
a
she
lot
can
of in a lot of
speak and see.
cases, people are faking it because we will be what we think we need to be to get what we're trying to get.
Can I add to that? Let me add something to that.
Mm-hmm.
This is our second marriage.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot that we understand because we've been through marriage before. Not that we don't have conflict, things don't come up. But honestly, I truly believe it's people's perspective. Like they really felt like they were being real, and they really felt like, I'm not saying some people aren't, but I think in large part once they get married, reality really hits. And I feel like pressure, you start to feel pressure. And where's that pressure coming from? The pressure is coming from the need for you now to become selfless instead of selfish.
Mm-hmm.
It's the need that, wait a minute, things are not like they were when I was by myself and we were just dating.
Mm-hmm.
So new things start to come to the surface
Mm-hmm.
that you never even saw.
And not or but and pressure is coming from you realizing in real time
That you got to make some changes.
that you're not as good as you thought
You're not
you
as good
were.
as you thought you were,
Right.
and you got to make some changes. So
Yes.
that's why I'm not saying I don't think the majority of the people are not being themselves, but I think they're still trying to figure out who they are, but don't realize it.
Well, no, I agree with you. I do believe in a lot of cases that is the situation.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're talking to people
Yeah.
as often as I do about their relationships, and it's like, oh wow, like this person knew, because here's what's happening, and this is the ugly truth to a lot of relationships. Sometimes we meet the needs for someone at a moment.
Mm-hmm.
They needed something and we had it, and they went for it. They shot they shot. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
They really wasn't ready for the total commitment of the
Right.
relationship.
But
They
would
were trying to get certain needs met,
Right.
and they were not committed to this thing called marriage.
But do you think people necessarily know that?
Oh,
You know what I'm saying?
definitely.
They may know that they're trying to get a need met, But do you think they actually have admitted to themselves that they're not ready
Now,
for
see, that's
marriage?
something else.
You
That's
know
a
what I'm
totally
saying?
different
Yeah,
conversation.
because I wasn't talking about they're going into it wanting needs met. That's kind of obvious. I'm talking about them really knowing and understanding, what that's going to look like when
Hmm.
they're actually married. And I
Right.
think people have a false sense of understanding that.
Okay, let's go to this
The fourth
next to the
one,
line.
the fourth way to know if your expectations are unrealistic is if you expect both of you to feel the
Same.
same, even with the ebbs and flows of marriage.
So
So
let me make sure I understand what that
go
means.
for it.
So we've been, year one, we had very few
Who?
conflicts.
Me and
No,
you?
I'm giving an
I'm about to say,
example.
because year one, we was arguing all the time.
I'm giving an example of what this means.
Okay.
Um, year one, we had very few conflicts, right?
Mm-hmm.
But now we've been married for 5 years.
Right.
Within that 5 years, we've had some issues, whether it's
Get your
health,
water, baby.
loss of job, arguments,
Right.
kids being born, whatever
Right.
the case may be, right?
Mm-hmm.
But somehow one of us are saying, this why we can't go back to how it used to be.
Right.
Well, things are different. And the ebbs and flows says we some things in life have happened.
Sometimes when the things in life happen, you have to make the
You
adjustment
have to make the adjustment.
because the same course of action may not match what needs
Year
to.
five that
Yes.
matched in year one.
This show wouldn't be this show if you didn't have to get your water
Exactly.
around this time.
It
You know what
wouldn't.
that means? That means you're using way more words than I am.
Hmm.
But with that being said, it happens all the time. Uh, but I would caution anyone, be very careful of the feeling the same, and even the whole thing of wanting everything to be so constant that there's something brewing in your marriage, and before you know it, it blows up in your face. But you thought everything was okay because you wanted everything to stay
Even keel.
even keel,
Right.
right?
Right.
Some
And there are some realistic expectations for things not to change. There are certain things that shouldn't change.
right, right.
But
The foundational principle stuff.
right.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
but sometimes life forces us to make adjustments.
Right. And
And we need to be okay with making those adjustments.
it's in those adjustments many times that you grow.
I was about to say that. Thank you.
Because like I said, yesterday on Denali's event, if you've been married for 15 years and year 1 and year 15 look alike, and I'm not talking about with the principles and the things that you value. I'm talking about, some of the same stuff.
Arguments,
Yeah, first
problems,
of all, I'm shocked it
issues.
lasted that long. But, because people find ways, this quarantine has kind of forced people to deal with each other a little bit more.
Mhm.
But, that's some issues. I can truly look back from when you and I first got married,
Mhm.
and I could say, wow, there's been some growth. I can look at us from last year,
Mhm.
2 years
Me
ago.
too. Me
Would
too.
you not say?
I agree.
And to me, and once again, we always say our marriage is not perfect, but you tend to want to stay in the race a little bit longer when you can look back and say, you know what?
In spite of,
In spite of
here's where we've grown.
him
Yeah.
getting on my nerves with this, and that, we have grown, right?
Yep. Here's the
All
last
right. What's the
one.
last one, babe? Give him the last one. The
You
last way to
expect
know
y-
if your expectations are unrealistic.
you expect your marriage to work itself out, even though it's going in the wrong direction.
Boom.
Yeah. I mean, honestly,
That part.
um, I would venture to say a lot of the couples, you know, we deal with are in that mindset. Like that's why they end up having because you're just like you just gonna deny that these issues exist. You know what I'm saying? And no, we're good. You know, no. You know, like,
Oh,
you often say this, babe. You say if one person got a problem, the relationship
the
has a
relationship
problem.
has a problem.
Right.
And the thing about that piece is so key. It's like, first of all, you got to humble yourself. And I'm talking to the men. If the men are out
Uh
there,
oh.
I'm talking. Yeah, we'll read what Angela's got to say. She just unloaded on us. But I'm talking to the men in particular because a lot of times they're the ones that have already found their little cave and they're in it and they're comfortable. They found a way to exist or survive in that situation. But it can happen with the women as well. They're in survival mode too. But the danger is a lot of the reason why I said men is because a lot of times they don't want to go to counseling. The women, if we're being honest, want to go to counseling and fix my husband because they think he's the problem. but they're both the problem, right? And so people say, "Well, I don't have money for it." And let's be honest, there are some people that are in a situation where stuff is so tight that they really only can afford the bare necessities.
Right.
Okay? I'm not talking about those people. I'm talking about at the end of the day, and I remember when our counselor told us this, and we weren't necessarily talking about money per se, but it's like, would you rather have cable or would you rather have your relationship?
Right.
If you're paying $130 for cable a month, you can cut off your cable and decide, even if it's just twice a month, we're going to go to counseling every 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
But the things that you value, those are the things that you put your money next
And
to.
your time.
And your time.
That's
We go
right.
to the doctor, some of us, often to the dentist. You get your car, your oil change, you get things maintained. Some people wash their car every week. We've got to wash the cars of our relationship.
Yep.
And that requires a whole lot of work. Yes.
If you're going shopping once a week, you can afford a third party to come into you know um, to advocate for you and your spouse. If you got to have the latest gadgets, you can
Right.
afford it.
You could afford
But
it.
the deal is, as you stated, we put value on stuff that really is not valuable.
But it's making us feel good at the time,
There you go.
especially when we're dealing with a situation. And we're not even talking about your marriage is in trouble, get a counselor. We're talking about, yes, that, but just period. It is healthy. We are at a time in our lives, 2020. If there ever was a time, black and brown people in particular, because we're the ones that usually we're leery of getting help, and I get it. If there ever was a time that we need to understand mental health is important,
Hmm.
it is now. We've got to be able to stop and say, you know what, we can't do this. All
Hmm.
right. Now, did you want to read some of the comments? Because I was going to tell them what to expect.
No, go ahead.
All right. Um, Angela. Angela had a long comment here.
Here it
She
is.
said, I'm the same loving, active person I was when dating. I was always in the community serving. He was present when I needed him. Yes, I felt, hold on. Yes, I felt special because he always came by to see me, sending flowers. Okay, we live together now. But now, married for 16 years, second marriage. And let me clarify something, Angela, when I said things should change from year 1 and year 15. You could still do, you might have to take that down so they can
Damn.
see us. You can still do some of those same wonderful things you've done in the community and be loving and things of that nature. But I think what we're talking about is the marriage should be growing
Right.
as far as your connection with one another, some of the same things that you've dealt with
Hmm.
in the past. They shouldn't be like a yoke around your neck throughout the whole entire marriage. You look like you're about to say something.
Well, no, I just something illuminated in her message. She said, "I was always in the community."
Mm-hmm.
And this is
And you should read her next comment too.
back to what
Mm-hmm.
I said. We have to make sure that we're that we are making sure that our marriage is the priority
Mm-hmm.
that goes before career, community. You know what I'm saying? Family.
Right.
If you don't value the marriage the same way you value other things, it will suffer.
And really, it's not even you always valuing other things. It's sometimes it's you valuing the way doing those other things make you feel, whether it be affirmed or whether it
Right.
be important. You follow what I'm saying?
Right. Right.
Because that's what it really it can boil down to. Because if you don't
Hmm.
enjoy doing something, you're not going to do it.
Exactly.
But
But
she's
but it's a double-edged sword.
yeah, she had some transparency here. She says, "Yes, Lord, fix him." Well, I found out it was me being selfish.
Mm-mm.
Thank you, Shannon Austin, Shannon and Shirley from Marriage Inc. And yes, I've once heard this, and I think it's true. I believe it to be true. They say you never know how selfish you are till you get married,
Or have
and,
children.
you just took the second part,
Hmm.
and then you never really know how selfish you are until you have children, because that's a whole nother
Yep.
level of self denial and
Mm-hmm.
sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if you are single and you have children, you get it, But that once you get married, it's a whole nother level of, wait, hold up now. This is my time. I'm used to being able to do this at this time. He wants to do what? She wants to do what? comes up all the time. But
Yep.
those 5 things, notice we were not specific. You just have to test whatever you feel to be realistic against. Am I expecting my partner to think like me? Am I
Mhm.
expecting him to be perfect?
Mhm.
Um, am I expecting the relationship to be perfect?
Not have any conflict.
Not have
You
any
know. Yeah.
conflict?
Yeah.
Am I expecting him to feel the same way, even though all these changes have taken place? And what was our last one, baby?
And the last one was
Go on, baby. I didn't.
I'm sorry.
Just scroll that one up.
The last one was, do you expect your marriage to work itself out even though
It's going in the wrong
it's
direction.
going in the
Right.
wrong direction?
All
And
right.
that's people not taking action in their relationship when
That's
it needs
right.
to be taken action to. So guys, look, 5 ways to know if your expectations are unrealistic. And this is something that we all need to focus on. Um, is the conflict we're having based on or is a derivative of unrealistic expectations? And in a lot of cases, we're going to find out, yep, you
And
know,
we got to be honest. If it is, make the adjustment. Because let's be totally
that's it.
honest. You can expect conflict. You can expect disappointment. You can
Hmm.
expect to be annoyed. You can expect you to think I'm doing more than he's doing. You can
Right,
expect to, there are times you may not be as attracted to that person, but you can also expect to be with your spouse until the end and be
right.
willing to make the adjustments.
And if you have, guys, listen, and I don't know who you are, um, I want to say 2 things. One, stop using the threat of divorce. Okay. One, stop planting that seed. Um, Two, if you are in a relationship and through hell and high water, you all are still hanging in there, that may be something worth, salvaging. And when I say salvage, Rachel and I always talk about, getting from this mode of survival to thriving. A lot of us are surviving. We're in relationships, it ain't what it need to be, and for some reason we're not even motivated to make it what it should be. And so we're just merely existing. But we're striving in our personal lives as well as in the lives of others, which is why we do what we do, to help people move from surviving to thriving. So your relationship can genuinely be what others desire theirs to be.
Because here's what's deep about what you just said, to throw in a last analogy here. When we do this presentation on unrealistic expectations, we talk about drowning marriages.
Mm-hmm.
And many times when you're drowning, sometimes other people don't know you're drowning. You know, you might scream, you may not have time to scream, whatever the case may be. However, what we can all admit is when you're drowning, you have limited oxygen. All right? Relationships need emotional oxygen. And what's happening is people are traveling through their relationships with limited emotional oxygen, and you're wondering why you're weak.
Mm-hmm.
It's because you're not really getting that full inspiration and expiration of good connection with your significant other.
Girl, you just got deep right then. Got more attractive.
So
Right
the whole time, that was the first time I got deep.
That was just the icing on the cake.
I think what made it deep was you started playing the music, and then it just all of a sudden, you know how when you play music, it sets the mood.
No, baby, it had nothing to do with that music.
Yeah.
It was those
But
thoughts
yeah.
and that came through your brain and out your mouth.
Get that emotional oxygen in your life. And it's hard because sometimes one person wants it, but the other one doesn't. But continue to pray for them because God can change things, and He does hear our prayers.
Amen. Guys, thank you all again for joining us on Relationship Real Talk. And we truly, truly enjoyed this. And please, if you can, just share this page, share our ministry with someone that you feel could benefit from it.
Now on Facebook and YouTube.
Yep, Facebook and YouTube. And we will look forward to seeing you guys next week.
Next week.
We love you and we truly, truly appreciate you.
All right, guys.
Peace.
Take care. Bye-bye.